Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me in the Critical Thinking Classroom. Our schedule is clearly a little bit, screwed up today, but that's okay. I don't know how many people have been joining me. I don't know how many people have been following me. I don't know how many people are helping me here with this kind of mess that I've been in for the last year with you. But I had to look. So I still wanted to get on, even though I'm not sure, how many people are watching or following. I really still wanted to get on and draw this conclusion. So I'm not sure how long I'm going to be on here for, because I was on Bookless for a very long time, and wanted to get some points across, but also talking a lot about some of the things that are going on here as well, because Bookless Classroom is about history, and if we don't want history to repeat itself, then we need to understand history. And it's no different for all of these classes. That's what we're doing. We're looking up research, and we're looking up what historically do we know, in particular about twin studies. And the concern here for me has been that these twin studies have been done completely unethically, and that there's no magnifying glass on the methods that actual scientists are using in the area of psychology, and clearly are disrupting people's lives. Their entire life. They're disrupting people's entire lives and not batting an eye about it. And this goes to questions that I think I'm going to have in the philosophical classroom. I haven't gotten the right title yet, I don't think, for these. But basically taking a look at, is there supposed to be a hierarchy? That is the whole idea here since the beginning of this country, is that people believe in the status quo basically out of convenience, and if we can get science to support the status quo, better for us. There was a movement that was beginning to demonstrate the hypocrisy, shine some light on the hypocrisy of having science say exactly what we want it to say, and what it's been trying to say for a very long time. That Dr. Bouchard I was talking about has done the twin studies. He is also been a part of the Genome Project. And the Genome Project is identifying all the genes so that we could do gene splicing. I watched a video on CRISPR. It looks very smart. This is where we splice and we put in new genes, changing disease, right? So getting rid of diseases, that is really the optimum idea. But so is the optimum idea of surgery, and surgery is to help when there's injuries, and we have a larger money-making industry doing plastic surgery for people, at least as large, if not larger, money-making industry for people who are doing elective surgeries, right, or taking elective medications for the purposes of this movement about how people are supposed to look. So when we have these movements for genes, then what we do is we can get the science behind it to demonstrate why we can use CRISPR, why we can change your genes, and originally, again, for disease, right, or health purposes, will now be turned into splicing genes for, and not turned into, it has been. It has been for I don't even know how many years, but it has been splicing genes to get the characteristics that we want. This has been going on at least since the 1930s, I'm pretty sure, because this is what minorities have been subjected to, right? And the reason why the powers that be want the hierarchy is because who are they going to experiment on? And all of these now are social experiments is what they are. So I got to be a social psychologist, and I understand social experiments, and all of a sudden I'm realizing that the social scientists, who are in particular non-believers, are manipulating genes and our understanding of these genetic relationships in ways that can make them money. So what do you think they're going to do for the gene splicing and the CRISPR? Which, by the way, numerous articles on this CRISPR does not work like it was supposed to. So none of this gene splicing is working like it's supposed to. And yet we continue to dominate science in this direction of pharmaceuticals that aren't for diabetics anymore, but are for people who are just plain fat and can afford it. Right? And genetic studies for whose benefit? I want to know who exactly took that vaccine. I want to know exactly who took that vaccine, because I'm quite certain that there's no way in the world the president took a vaccine that could have given him myocarditis. There's no way in the world that the president took a vaccine, that the general public was getting, with all of those stats and with all of the demonstrations across the country that this vaccine isn't working. There's no way they gave it to that president. No way they gave that vaccine to that president. Now, he got COVID. He got something, but he didn't get that vaccine. Not that vaccine. Not the vaccine that they haven't tested very well and that has been giving people myocarditis. I guarantee they weren't giving that vaccine. So where's all that data, right? Everything now is available and allowed to be tested on the American public. Every single piece of medicine is now allowed to be tested on the American public. Without that, that's where the testing phase 4 is with the American public now. So we know that. We've known that for a very long time, since the 1980s, that the American public is the testing ground for our pharmaceuticals. And we also know that the pharmaceutical industry is driving the medical industry, and so that and surgery. And so there is no reason, since there's money-making industry there, to correct the road that they've been going down. So what does that have to do with twin studies? Well, what that has to do with the twin studies is if I know and I can identify these twins, vaccinate, not vaccinate. I can do all kinds of studies knowing the DNA. And so that's what the conclusion and summaries of this. I've showed you how we get to the twin studies and the DNA and the information behind the twin studies that we find to be, pretty important, right? So it's not as if this information on these studies have been lost. This information is not lost on me, right? This information I find to be important information, but to allow it to be collected in unethical ways so that there is such a disparity in who's getting tested and who's not getting tested, right? If I can think that all of these people I can generalize data, if I can generalize medical data from, for example, a child to an adult to a child, or more likely, generalize from an African American to a white person, more likely, I can generalize to that, then I'm saying a couple things. I'm saying that you're like me, that you are like me. But that the powers so if I'm generalizing information from a lower class of people that I'm studying, right? From a lower class of people, those are the ones that I'm studying, I can generalize it to the higher echelon, the 1%, then you're saying we're like one another. We are like one another. There aren't enough genetic differences between you and me for you not to be able to benefit from me being your research rat. And if that's the case, that you're enough like me that you can generalize my health statistics in the lower class, right? Because now that's where they've got me, right? They've got me in the lower class. They pushed me down a class without earning any income, despite this beautiful house that I have, right? And not a single person has come to me with an offer for this house. What do you suppose that's about? That's just about blacklisting somebody. That's about blacklisting somebody. And that's a euphemistic language, blacklist, using the term black as a derogatory term, right? Look at all the women who have been blacklisted. Joan Rivers, Kathy Griffin. Has Celine Dion been blacklisted? The woman who did the sitcoms, who did the university thing, blacklisted, right? How many people I'm finding that ended up making a discovery, so the intellect of these slaves, only for their masters to take the patent and not and keep it and not do anything with it or make money on that patent, right? So denying these human qualities, dehumanizing, right? Denying these human qualities to African Americans, but benefiting from the knowledge of the testing on them, or benefiting from the knowledge that they're gaining from their inventions, for example. All those things, benefiting from the knowledge. And we can see that if we have African Americans who are given some advantages at the same period of time that we have African Americans that are not given advantages, and some like Frederick Douglass can soar with his intellect, than to sit there and say it's not possible, or that and this is still language that's going on today. African Americans cannot learn or behave in the same way that white Americans do. It's the same language. So that's racist language. So in my classes, in my next classes, I'm talking about, do we still have racist language, and what is discrimination? Do we still have racism, and what is discrimination, right? Well, Bookless, in this critical thinking classroom, there's no doubt about it. There's just no doubt about it. It doesn't mean that people are necessarily discriminating because of the color. It may all be economics, but I'll discriminate because of your gender. I'll discriminate because of your sexual orientation. I'll discriminate because of your color. I'll discriminate just so that I can get ahead. And that's what these gene studies are about. And now it's the basis of science. It is the full foundation across all scientific disciplines, the basis: medicine, psychology, biology, all of it. The basis is DNA. All of it's been invested in there. So we're not talking anymore about environment. I want to take a look at that article for just a minute. Okay, hold on. I want to read this article, and I've just got to find it. There we go. So let's take a look at this article. There we go. Identical twins hint. Identical twins hint at how environments change gene expression. We know what gene expression is now, right? So studying twins has long offered insight into the interplay of nature and nurture. Epigenetics is the next frontier. Epigenetics means over and above the genes, the environment, how the environment interacts with these genes. That's what epigenetics is. But we got to first start with the genes, which is in these gene studies. Monica and Erica Hoffman, let me make this so you can read it. Monica and Erica Hoffman stand barefoot side by side near a sign that reads Twin Study Center at California State University at Fullerton. So you can see the extent to which these twin studies now have taken. Their glasses removed, both have auburn eyes, softly jutted chins, light freckles, and perky noses. Both wear black shirts and small sparkly earrings. Erica's are flowers, Monica's bows. The identical twin sisters turned 39 the day before this lab visit. You are the 101st twin pair we've had in the study, Nancy Siegel, a shrewd, spirited professor in a squinted black hoodie, tells them as a cluster of graduate students shadow her through the halls. Siegel, a fraternal twin herself, is a walking Wikipedia of twin science. She specializes in evolutionary psychology and behavioral genetics and has studied thousands of twins and their families around the world. Nearly 3 decades ago, Siegel founded the Twin Study Center to learn what twins like the Hoffman sisters, far from the same despite appearances, have to teach us about the complex interplay of forces that impact our health and shape who we are. Siegel takes the tape measure and begins with Monica and then moves to Erica. 68 inches. That would make Monica 3/4 of an inch taller. At first glance, the Hoffman twins' physical differences are difficult to notice. All right. In September 2015, the doctors discovered a small tennis-sized ball tumor in Monica's left breast. It turned out to be that she had stage 2 breast cancer, which had already spread to her lymph nodes. But the specialists were surprised to learn that Monica had an identical twin, and 3 years later, they continued to be baffled. Monica is now in remission after a partial mastectomy, while Erica continues to receive regular mammograms and ultrasounds, but has never tested positive for cancer. A year before Monica's diagnosis, a mammogram also detected early stage breast cancer in the twins' mother. This is not so unusual, and it's not such a mystery how identical twins can share all the same genes, but one would get cancer and the other one doesn't. We already know. Cancer is an environmental disease, period. People say you could find breast cancer in the mother and the daughter and yes, there are certain genes certainly that can be passed on, but the initial disease is an environmental disease. And what we do is we get mutations that may be passed on without a doubt, but it is compounded by more environmental factors, which increase the likelihood that a mother and a daughter would both get breast cancer, for example. Okay? All right. Identical twins, also known as monozygotic twins. So MZ, capital M, capital Z is what we say, monozygotic. Monozygotic, one zygote. You know what a zygote is? Single cell gene, the first baby, right? It comes from a single cell that splits in two and share 100% of their genes. Neither Hoffman twin tested positive for BRCA gene mutations, which account for between 5 and 10% of breast cancer cases. There are other mutations that may be involved in breast cancer, but with Hoffman twins, the question loomed: what could have led to the divergent diagnosis when their bodies contain the same roughly 20,000 genes? Well, that's clear. That's clear. Twin studies have like they act like it's a mystery. Twin studies have historically been some of the most valuable genetic research tools in the world, contributing to a century of data to our knowledge of human behavioral, medical, and physical traits. A century of data that we have there of unethical collection of data on twins. Over a century, and we don't even bat an eye at that. Behavioral, medical, and physical information that we have on these twins that were collected unethically. All twins are valuable to research, says Jeffrey Craig of the Center for Molecular and Medical Research in Deakin University in Australia. But identical twins, I think they are the most valuable because what we control or hold still is the genetics. So we control for that. There's no variability in the genetics. The mother and the father, the date of birth, the season of birth, and shared environment, the mother's diet are all the same. Twin studies are simple, very elegant design, Siegel adds. Holding the genetic constant allows researchers to study the age-old question of nature versus nurture. Yeah, except for the fact that they keep coming down on DNA. And they're like, well, what the heck happened in the cancer? We already know cancer's environmental. Why? And this is the thing that muddies up the water. I want to move down here. In 2014, Siegel stumbled on the 8th and 9th publicly known switched at birth cases. An even more bizarre story of two sets of brothers in Colombia. Each family believed their two sons were fraternal twins, but everything the men thought they knew about their families and selves blew up when co-worker of one of the brothers, George or Jorge, in Bogota, went to the butcher shop on the far side of town. She was sure she saw Jorge working behind the meat counter, which was odd because she knew Jorge worked at an engineering company. Was actually Jorge's identical twin brother. This mistaken identity led to the discovery of two of the four brothers had been switched at birth. The young men were actually part of two identical twin sets. And this is the thing about this, that it's just appalling. It's appalling that people would do this, and they do this with the rationalization that it's good for science. That is being done on purpose. People know this, and it's being done on purpose. They're taking advantage of me. They're putting me in vulnerable spots all over the place, and they're studying me. It's no different. What power do I have? Nothing. I have no power, and that's why they're able to do this. So that's what I wanted to look at. I just wanted to bring to your attention that when we are discovering here, and these people are making just gobs of money on this. At the university level with the research, they're getting grants from the federal government in order to, so your tax money is going to separate you and then to study you. My tax dollars are going to do this to me. They're going to do this to me. They're going for doing this to me, putting me in a vulnerable position so that I can't work. And that's the university studying the stress impact on me. They told me this over a year ago. You're being studied for stress. We're seeing how you react to stress. Somebody told me that. Now, they didn't tie themselves to the university, but they've been around in a whole bunch of ways. Dr. Annette Feravich, this is the Critical Thinking Classroom. I think I'm all set with our twin studies. You can do a greater, deeper dive if you want to understand how we get to, as I said in the summary and conclusions, how do we get to there? I love seeing people in the background there. How do we get to understand the gene contribution, and the environmental contribution, which is separated into shared, what do we share with our family, that environment, versus non-shared, who am I when I'm alone? And we have found that we really are, much of who we are has to do with who we are alone, and then the environmental impact on us, in particular when we're alone. Sometimes that environmental impact on us actually is due to genes. We will have a tendency to move towards these environments based on our genes and not these environments. And so that is a way that our genes actually do instigate our environment. But then our environment acts on those genes. So we have this constant interaction. And that's what we got from this topic that we talked about, and also this PowerPoint here, which is, in each one of these, we see that the key element here is environment. Those numbers are the number of stressors, right? The number of stressors, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we've got the genetic makeup, the yellow bar being the genetic makeup for both parents, giving you a tendency towards depression. And we look at the outcome for self-reported depression, probability of major depression episode, probability of suicide, and information reports of depression from other people, for example. And what we see here is that who ends up being the most depressed? It's those people who get a genetic predisposition for both the mother and the father. So we do need a genetic predisposition. But what is it that instigates it? It is, look at the 4 stressors. We have no difference in genetic makeup for depression, no difference in depression based on genetic makeup. It is based on the number of stressors. And so when somebody goes and takes away on purpose, your way to make a living without any verification for it whatsoever, without any evidence or reasoning to do that, they create stressors. When they take away your family and put your family in danger, they create stressors. When they have criminal people next door to you that are building in criminal ways, that creates stressors. And this is what ends up happening. Increases in depression and suicide. Do you think that with my great big voice here that the university wants me to shut up? That wants me to fall underneath the pressure of what they're doing? Of course they do. Of course they do. This has been the psychological studies that they've been doing since at least the 1930s, in order to be able to make money on manipulating genes. And that's what my healthy mind, body, spirit has always been about. It's been about, you don't need to be manipulating your genes. You need to be manipulating your environment. And if you think that genes are the answer, you are going to limit your lifespan. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. I am here in the Critical Thinking Classroom. Thanks for joining me. We just wrapped up summary and conclusions. I think a little messy, but I think this leaves you open to do some deep dives without explaining because you don't need to know anymore. You probably don't need or want to know any more than you've already known about genes, for example. Let me get back over here for a sec. Those are correlations on personality characteristics, which we've talked about before. But here, this is really the technical information that you want to know for these studies. There is the Finn study, which looked at 333 identical twins, 298, 300 fraternal twins, and matched them and then 1,262 matched twins. But what this again is showing you is the depth of these studies. So if you want to learn more about the genetic makeup for these twin studies, how they got these numbers, heritability factors. So here, heritability factor is equal to, you could see this equation here is looking at 2 times the correlation for monozygotic twins minus dizygotic twins. And that's how we get the heritability. So if you want to, or monozygotic twins raised apart, the correlation for monozygotic twins raised apart is the heritability index. So you could do the math and find out the heritability for any characteristic at all. That's what they are doing here for angry emotionality. They are looking at, as we talked about in the last one, the amount of contributions of genes, the amount of contribution of the shared environment, the amount of contribution of the non-shared environment. That was such a mess what I just did there. So that's what we're looking. You can look at and figure out each one of these. Heritability is taking a look at the gene combination. But we also have here environmental Environmentality, that's what that is. Environmentality. The amount of individual differences due to shared environments and non-shared environments. And so here is the math that they're using to figure out those mathematical equations. So what we're seeing here is that there are a lot of different ways that you can do deep dives if these studies interest you. The way that I'm doing a deep dive more so than any other is taking and putting a magnifying glass or a microscope over the unethical behaviors and looking at this research. And when you take a look at the unethical behaviors, you see the motivation behind it, and the motivation is always the same. It's always money. Money, and then money gives you power is what it is. So I'm uncovering these people who are looking for money and power by perpetuating the inequalities that we see all over and that we've seen since the beginning of this country, the same kinds of inequalities that we've seen since the beginning of this country. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. I'm the teacher. You are here in the critical thinking classroom. I'll be back here. It probably won't be until 1 o'clock for the spiritual classroom. So thanks for joining me. I'll let you know. You'll see it. I don't know how many people are here. I have no idea. I still have my property though. So say prayers for me, please, so I can keep this property, because I have no job and they are keeping me from working. And they know it doesn't take a lot for me to keep this property. So lots of criminals around me. And so I'm hoping that people are helping me with this criminal behavior. Dr. Annette Feravich. Healthy mind, body, spirit. And I'm still chugging away. I'm the teacher.